Hello, my name's Sheree and I'm presenting the yellow wallpaper for my short story study. For this story, I chose it because I personally read it in 10th grade in my advanced English class, and I really remember liking it because it was a story that was easy to understand based off of the way that it was written and being in first person narrative, but then it also had a deeper level to it that was interesting in a historical aspect by needing to understand what was happening with mental health patients at the time and how they were being treated and dealt with. And so for my students, I think that's something that's important that they are exposed to that element, because a lot of times that's a side of like medical history that we are not familiar with and not exposed to. And then as far as the standards, they are able to dive into the one that is based off of the character analysis and being able to see how a character progresses the story forward and seeing how that character changes over time and like the deeper layers. And so also with that, I was interested in showing the relationship between the main character and her husband. And some questions were that I would want my students to kind of think about if the roles were reversed, if it was a male versus female in the main as the main character, how would the wife react to if the husband had this mental illness? And some other questions were focusing on insanity and like showing if there was any certain points within the story that they saw a slow deterioration in the main character in her sanity. And for some of the projects, I thought of doing a research project in which they are able to investigate the methods by which they were using dealing with mental health patients in the late 1800s, and then also doing that paired with the nonfiction. I thought that that would be a great element, so I found like a presentation, a multimedia presentation. They went over that, an article, as well as why I wrote the yellow wallpaper by the author herself, so that in that case, she gives like a firsthand account for why she wrote it, which is really important because a lot of times we don't have something like that from the author and we can only guess and think about why she may have done it. And then for a creative writing project, I had done a found poem. So I thought that if students pull out different words and phrases from the text itself and create their own poetry, that they would be able to get an idea of pulling out descriptive words and using a lot of vivid imagery just as the poem had, and that it should still reflect the character herself. And then also that the students could do a first person narrative about a character who, again, goes into insanity and what is their like slow descendants into that and how does that happen, and that it should model the same story structure of the short story format written in first person, and then trying to model those like elements by like writing really vividly and then making the story kind of come to life, like how the main character ends up running along the wallpaper and just really believing that she is like this girl that's in the paper herself. And then let's see. Oh, and then for assessment, I'm just really looking for that the students are getting an idea for like the imagery, that they are understanding the psychological element of it and how a character can transform throughout the story. And then I'm looking that the students are able to, during a dialectical journal, pull out quotes that have a deeper meaning and then successfully pull out what that deeper meaning is. And then that within that dialectical journal, I could be challenging the advanced students by offering a little bit more personal account that they can add to it, or then also challenging them through the questions that I ask, while still keeping the questions like a variety of questions for all students. And then for some of the students that may have like an auditory problem, I thought that they might benefit from written out accounts versus like presentations, which I had incorporated into my story study when I was doing like a vocabulary element. where they would do the CD maps in groups and then present them orally. And then there was also a character analysis worksheet that I really liked because you, in the middle, had a picture of the character, and then all around you had these different elements describing the character by pulling out concrete elements as well as abstract elements, like what were the character's actions and words, which would be the more concrete, versus what were the character's accomplishments or challenges. And I think that gives you a pretty good overview of all the different elements of my story study. And I hope you guys have a great day in class today. Thanks.